If you've been watching our videos, you're probably wondering where all our music came from. Well, his name is Brian Park, and he's a talented musician who actually custom wrote and produced all the music you've been hearing on our videos, including our theme song. Yeah, he actually even played each individual instrument one by one and then meshed them together. Yeah, and that's a lot of work. Well, he and his wife, Amy, are actually our friends, so I wanted to do something nice to say thanks, so I wanted to make dinner for them. And they were in luck because within the same week, I got a delivery from Farm Fresh to You, which is from our friend Janice, actually. And that's a surprise box of local, fresh, organic produce. And inside that box was this asparagus that looks so green and juicy that I decided why not make an asparagus risotto to go along with their thank you dinner. So here's my recipe for an easy asparagus risotto. Grab a bundle of fresh asparagus and cut off the ends. You can either do it with a knife or here's your trick. Grab each stalk and just kind of grab it at the end and give it a snap. And wherever it just falls apart naturally is where it wants to fall apart naturally. So that's how you know which parts are tender. Discard the hard, tough parts. Repeat with all the stalks. And then I like to just kind of cut off the jaggedy edges because they're kind of ugly, but you don't have to. Cut up the stalks into 1-inch bite-sized pieces and set aside. Get all the rest of your chopping done. So grab 2 shallots and then cut them into fine dice. If you don't have shallots, you can just use about 1/4 of any kind of onion you want. But shallots do have that distinct flavor that I like, so if you see them at the grocery store, just go ahead and grab them. Next, pour about 5 to 6 cups of reduced sodium chicken stock into a pot and put it over a simmer. And the reason you use reduced sodium is because you want to be able to have the ability to adjust your seasoning, and if you use regular chicken stock, then it might be too salty. Then add your asparagus pieces and cook them until they're about crisp tender, meaning that they are soft enough to eat, but then they do have a little bit of firmness to them. Then fish them out with a skimmer and just set them aside until later, but keep your chicken stock on a simmer. And in another wide pot, set over medium heat, add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter with 1 tablespoon of olive oil. You add the olive oil to the butter because you want to prevent the butter from burning. Add your diced shallots and sweat them until softened, but without color. And then add in 1½ cups of arborio or carnaroli rice. Coat the grains with the butter until they just begin to turn translucent, about 3-4 minutes. Then pour in ½ cup of white wine and cook while stirring until almost all of it is absorbed. Next, then you start to add your chicken broth by adding a ladleful at a time. So you add 1 ladle and then you cook it until it slowly absorbs all of that broth. After that, you add another ladle and you keep doing this, and this is why it takes a little bit of patience. Just keep going, but you have to make sure that the rice really does absorb that ladleful of chicken broth before you add the next. Doing this method of adding the chicken broth slowly is what actually releases the starch from the rice, and that's what lends to the creamy texture of the risotto that we're used to. You keep doing this until the rice is fully cooked, anywhere between 20 to I'd say 30 minutes. But the key to risotto is that you do want it to be soft enough to eat, but you do want it to have a little bit of firmness to it, kind of like an al dente pasta. But that's the mistake that a lot of people make because they'll overcook their risotto and just keeps cooking until it's complete mush or porridge. That's not what you're looking for. You want it to be soft enough to eat, but still a little bit firm to the tooth. Normally, you're supposed to finish off your risotto with butter and Parmesan cheese or whatever else that you want to add. But in this case, I knew I had to transport this risotto over to Amy and Brian's house because we were bringing dinner to them. So here's a method of making the risotto in advance. Cook your risotto until it's about 3/4 of the way done, and then you stop. Dump the risotto out into a baking sheet or a casserole dish and let it cool. Wrap it and pop it into the fridge.
Hey, Julie!
I brought your food and champagne.
Hey, come in. Brian home?
Yeah, he's home.
Hey, Jules, what's going on? How you doing? Come on in, come on in.
In this case, then I took it over to Amy and Brian's house, and then you just put it back into the pot, and you also have the remaining chicken broth that you didn't use, and keep that on a simmer, just like you did before. And then you just go back to the way you did, where you just add the chicken broth slowly, and wait till it absorbs, then you add more. And then you finish off the rice that way. When the risotto is done cooking, you can add anywhere between 1/4 to 1/2 cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. It's really up to you. Add fresh chopped parsley just for color and 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter just to finish. And you know, you can at this point serve the risotto immediately, and you can garnish with more things like more herbs or more Parmesan cheese, but you really don't have to. I decided to serve this creamy asparagus risotto with a crispy glazed salmon. But I'm really sorry, you're gonna have to wait until next week to see that video, because otherwise this video would be way too long. Please stay tuned for part 2 next week to see what Amy and Brian thought about this dish, as well as the recipe for the crispy glazed salmon. But I will tell you one thing, they really did love this risotto because they thought it was cooked perfectly, had a nice creamy texture, and then the asparagus was still nice and crisp. So anyways, I hope you do give it a try because it's super delicious and really easy to do. For this exact recipe as well as other ideas, visit chefjulieyoon.com. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.